Nancy, his voice cracked slightly, I need you to really understand this. This isn't just about the party. It's about trust, respect, choices, and consequences. You crossed the line again. You broke your word. Hi, I'm Nancy. You're glowing, my coworker Amanda gushes for what feels like the 100th time today. I can't help but smile, but not because of the typical engagement excitement everyone assumes. Instead, it's because Frank left a silly sticky note in my lunchbox, a crude drawing of us as stick figures. He labeled himself Still Can't Draw, and me still says yes anyway. That's what I love about us. We've never done things the usual way. Take our first date. Instead of dinner and a movie, we spent the evening chasing his elderly neighbor's runaway rabbit through the rain. By the time we caught Mr. Whiskers, who, ironically, was not a cat, we were soaked, covered in mud, and laughing so hard we could barely stand. The last 3 years with Frank have been filled with these delightfully odd moments, like the time we attempted to make homemade pasta and ended up with flour in places I'm still discovering, or when he tried to teach me basketball and I managed to hit him in the face with the ball, twice. Now, whenever we play, he wears protective goggles, making him look like a nerdy mad scientist. Even our engagement story is unconventional. There were no flash mobs, no elaborate scavenger hunts, and definitely no skywriting. Instead, Frank proposed while we were building a blanket fort during a power outage. We'd been telling ghost stories by candlelight, and right in the middle of my terrible impression of a ghost, he pulled out a ring and said, "I want all my power outages to be with you." People keep asking about wedding themes and color schemes, but honestly, I'm too busy enjoying the little things. Like how Frank geeks out over random facts about space. Did you know astronauts can't cry in space because their tears don't fall? He'll say, his eyes lighting up like a child sharing a secret. He tells me these tidbits while we grocery shop or fold laundry. Sometimes I catch him watching me when he thinks I'm not paying attention, like when I'm trying to solve a crossword puzzle or dancing to 80s music while loading the dishwasher. He looks at me like I'm the most captivating person on earth, even if I've just spent 10 minutes ranting about someone stealing my clearly labeled yogurt from the office fridge. The ring feels different than I expected. Not in how it looks, it's stunning, a vintage piece that belonged to his grandmother, but in what it represents. It's not just about our future, it celebrates what we already have. This love is warm and comfortable, like coming home after a long day to find your favorite meal waiting, even though you never asked for it. Last night, we sat on our tiny balcony eating leftover Chinese food straight from the containers. Frank wore his "This is my fancy shirt" t-shirt while we planned our future using fortune cookie predictions as a guide. According to the cookies, we'll have 3 daughters, live in a house with a purple door, and become unexpectedly skilled at origami. As I watched him laugh at his own bad jokes, trying not to choke on his low mane, I felt an overwhelming certainty. Not the kind of fairy tale certainty you see in movies, but the kind that comes from knowing someone's quirks and flaws and loving them anyway. Hey, it's Frank. 2 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days. That's how long it's been since I saw that name pop up on Nancy's phone. Not that I'm counting. I remember sitting in our favorite coffee shop, clutching a cup of coffee that had gone cold. She promised, really promised, that she finally understood why her friendship with Tom made me uncomfortable. Something about that conversation felt different. Maybe it was the way she reached across the table, took my phone, and showed me as she deleted him from her social media. "I choose us," she'd said. The ring had been hidden in my sock drawer for months by then. I'd picked it out last summer, but every time I planned to propose, something stopped me. A casual mention of meeting Tom for coffee, a text notification I happened to glimpse, or those group hangouts where he always seemed to show up. Each time I put the ring away, and my doubts grew louder. It's funny how much lighter everything feels now. Last weekend at her cousin's wedding, I didn't spend the evening wondering if she was texting him during the quiet moments. Instead, I watched her dance, terribly but joyfully. God, I love how she doesn't care who's watching when Fiancée comes on. All I could think was, this is it. This is our time. The proposal didn't go as planned. I'd envisioned an elaborate setup, dinner reservations at that fancy place overlooking the city, a violinist on standby, the works, But that morning, watching her in her ratty old college sweatshirt, trying to make French toast, and somehow getting more batter on herself than in the pan, I couldn't wait. The ring was upstairs, and before I knew it, I was running to get it. She said yes before I even finished asking. Then she burned the French toast because we were too busy calling our families. We ended up at the local diner for breakfast, both still in pajamas, looking like a mess and grinning like fools. Looking back, I realize how close I came to letting my fears overshadow what we had. Those endless conversations about boundaries, the fights that started with, "he's just a friend," and ended with slammed doors. They seem distant now. Not forgotten, but like hurdles we had to clear to get here. Now, whenever Nancy's phone buzzes, she reads her messages aloud without me even asking. It's usually about some work drama or her mom's latest cooking mishap. The way she shares everything with me now, no secrets, no omissions, has a casual ease to it. Just last week, she turned down an invitation to a mutual friend's party because she knew Tom would be there. She didn't make a big deal out of it, just said, "Not our vibe, babe. Let's have a movie night instead." Sometimes I still find myself bracing for something to go wrong. Old habits, after all, are hard to break. But then, Nancy does something like leave a sticky note in my lunchbox with a cheesy pun, or text me about how she can't wait to argue over wallpaper choices when we buy our first house. And I'm reminded that this is trust. This is what we fought for. The engagement ring glitters on her hand, catching the light just right, but what's even more perfect is how she absent-mindedly fiddles with it while reading, the same way she used to twirl her hair. It's become a part of her, just like she's become a part of me. For the first time in our relationship, I'm only looking ahead. I had been staring at Tom's congratulatory text for 20 minutes, debating whether to reply. It shouldn't be this complicated. He's just Tom. The same Tom who helped me move into my first apartment, taught me to drive stick in his beat-up Volkswagen, and supported me when I lost my dad 3 years ago. Sure, we dated briefly in college, 2 months to be exact, before realizing we were better as friends. That was 7 years ago, and since then he's felt more like a brother than an ex. We were in the same pre-med study group, both discovered we hated organic chemistry, and switched majors together. Him to business, me to marketing. Some people just stick around through all of life's twists and turns. Frank doesn't see it that way. To him, Tom is an ex-boyfriend. But to me, he's the friend who brought me soup during finals, helped assemble my IKEA furniture, even if he did put the bookshelf together backward, and introduced me to his girlfriend, Sarah, last year. How could someone like that possibly feel threatening? After all, he's the reason I have the ridiculous nickname from that time I tried to dye my hair purple, and it came out green. Maybe I should have set firmer boundaries with Frank earlier. But how do you explain a friendship that's weathered 3 apartments, 2 career changes, and countless dating disasters? Tom was there through my rocky relationship with Mike, my quarter-life crisis when I almost moved to Seattle, and even my brief, misguided dream of becoming a professional baker. He still teases me about those rock-hard cookies I baked. I understand why Frank feels uneasy. I do. If the roles were reversed, I'd probably feel the same. But cutting Tom out entirely feels like erasing a whole chapter of my life. It's not just about losing a friend. It's about pretending that all those shared moments and inside jokes didn't matter. Like the time we got hopelessly lost on a hike and ended up in the wrong state? or our rainy Sunday tradition of watching terrible sci-fi movies. The engagement ring catches the light as I type out and delete another response to his text. I promised Frank I'd keep my distance, and I've kept that promise. No more coffee meetups, no more game nights where Tom insisted on being the Monopoly banker and cheated, obviously, but completely ghosting someone who's been there for all the pivotal moments of my adult life feels wrong. Last week, Sarah posted photos of their trip to Japan, the one Tom had been planning since college. He's finally living out those dreams we used to talk about during late-night study sessions. I wanted to message him about the goofy tourist shirt he was wearing in one photo, the kind we'd always joked about buying ironically. Instead, I just liked the post and closed Instagram. Frank has been so happy lately. Seeing him at ease, confident in our relationship, means everything to me. But there's still this small voice in my head asking, shouldn't true love be strong enough to handle friendships? Tom was there when I was figuring out who I wanted to be, not just who I wanted to be with. He knows all my embarrassing stories, my failed attempts at being an adult, and my fear of turning into my mother. I look at his text again. Congrats, Nance. Frank's a lucky guy. Hope you're happy. Friendly. Simple. Exactly what you'd expect from an old friend. After a moment, I set my phone down without replying. Sometimes keeping the peace means letting certain bridges quietly fade away, even the ones that led you to where you are now. It's just a birthday party, Frank. Why are you making this into such a big deal? I look at Nancy across the kitchen island, her hands wrapped around a mug, the same one Tom gave her during college. His presence lingers in these small, everyday details, and the cold anger rising inside me feels as settled as the coffee in her cup. This isn't about a party, I say evenly. Let me be clear, every male friend who claims to be just a friend is usually waiting for his opportunity. I've been that guy. I've watched those guys. They console a girl after a breakup and make their move 2 weeks later. Nancy starts to interrupt, but I hold up a hand. Well, didn't Tom invite me to this party? I ask, my voice firm, because in his mind, I'm temporary. I'm just the fiancé who's in his way. He's stayed close to you for 7 years, Nancy. 7 years of being your emotional backup plan. Her engagement ring glimmers under the kitchen lights, a bitter reminder. When I proposed, it wasn't just because I loved you. I proposed because you finally understood this boundary. You promised me, Nancy. You looked me in the eye and promised you understood why this friendship wasn't appropriate. She slams her mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim. That's not fair, she snaps. Tom has a girlfriend. He's always been supportive of our relationship. I laugh. A hollow, humorless sound. Of course he has. That's the playbook, Nancy. Be the supportive friend, the guy who just gets you. Ask yourself this, why does he text you at midnight with random thoughts? Why does he need to meet you alone for coffee to catch up? Why can't these meetups include his girlfriend or me? Silence stretches between us. Outside, a car alarm blares briefly before fading away. I've seen this pattern so many times, I say, my tone softening. True friendships between men and women are rare enough, but between exes? Practically unheard of. There's always one person who still has feelings, waiting for their moment. More often than not, it's the guy. Because we're simple like that, we leave the door open even if it's just a sliver. Nancy's face reddens. So you're saying men and women can't just be friends? That's ridiculous and outdated. No, I reply firmly. What I'm saying is that I've been clear about this boundary since the start. I proposed to you because you acknowledged it, and now you're not asking me. You're telling me that you're going to his birthday party. A party with drinking, dancing, and nostalgia about your past. I turn toward the window, needing space. Do you know what hurts the most? It's not even about Tom anymore. It's about respect. Respect for my feelings, for our relationship, for the promises you made when you said yes to this ring. Looking back at her, I continue, my voice steady. I'm not trying to control you, Nancy. I'm not dictating your actions. I'm telling you what I can and cannot tolerate in a marriage, and having my wife maintain a close friendship with someone who's seen her naked, that's not something I can accept. The silence that follows is heavy, laden with the weight of all we've built and all we might lose. When I finally speak again, my voice is quieter but no less resolute. So no, it's not just a birthday party, it's a choice. And if you go, you're choosing to dismiss everything I've said, everything you've promised, and everything this ring represents. I head toward our bedroom but pause at the door. You know what's truly sad? Tom knows exactly what he's doing. He's testing how much influence he still has over you, and right now, you're proving it's more than your fiancé's. The couch feels strange beneath me, its cushions a constant reminder that this isn't where I belong. My engagement ring feels heavy on my finger as I scroll through photos from Tom's party. Each image feels like evidence of my wrongdoing. Me laughing with friends, blowing out candles on Tom's cake, group shots with everyone raising their glasses. I thought coming home late would mean Frank would already be asleep, that we could deal with it in the morning, but instead he was sitting in the dark living room waiting. "Have fun?" he asked flatly when I walked in. There was no anger in his voice, which somehow made it worse. He didn't even look at my weak smile or acknowledge my attempt to kiss him. He just pointed at the couch and went to our bedroom, closing the door behind him, a door that might as well have been a wall. As morning light filters through the blinds, I hear him in the kitchen. My heart leaps. Maybe he's cooled down. Maybe we can work this out. I rehearse my explanation again. It was just a party. Nothing happened. I barely even talked to Tom. But when I step into the kitchen, Frank's expression freezes me in place. He holds out his hand, the engagement ring sitting in his palm. He doesn't look up from his coffee. 2 words, he says quietly, and suddenly I can't breathe. Frank, please, it was stupid, I know, but... Nancy, he interrupts, his voice breaking slightly. This isn't about the party. This is about trust, about respect, about choices and their consequences. You tested the boundary again, you defied me, and you broke your promise. I start crying, the kind of crying that makes it hard to catch your breath. I'll cut him off completely, I'll block his number, I'll stop. Frank finally looks at me, and I wish he hadn't. His eyes are rimmed red but dry. You've made those promises before, he says, his voice calm but devastating. But last night proved something to me. You'll always choose keeping him in your life over keeping me in it. That's not true, I protest, but even as I say it, I know it is. Every boundary I agreed to, I've found ways around. Every promise I made, I've bent, and for what? For someone who, as Frank points out, didn't even care enough to invite my fiancé to his party. Frank pushes his untouched coffee aside and stands. I called Rachel. She'll be here in an hour to help you pack. The word packed doesn't register at first. None of this feels real. Just 24 hours ago I was planning a wedding. You have until tomorrow evening to get your things, he adds, his voice still gentle. Anything left, I'll have shipped to your mom's. I grab his arm as he walks past. 3 years, Frank. Are you really throwing away 3 years? He carefully removes my hand. No, Nancy, you threw it away. One decision at a time, one broken promise at a time. Last night was just the last straw. The next few hours blur. Rachel arrives, avoiding my eyes as she helps pack my life into boxes. Frank stays behind the closed door of his office. I keep waiting for him to burst out, to yell, to give me one last chance. But he doesn't. The silence is absolute. It's only when I'm in Rachel's car that my phone buzzes. It's a message from Tom. "Hope you're okay. Frank seems really out of line here. Want to grab coffee and talk about it?" I stare at the message, and Frank's words from every argument flood back, about men waiting in the wings, about the impossibility of true platonic friendships with an ex. I turn off my phone and lean my head against the window, watching what was once our apartment building, and now just his, disappear in the side mirror. The engagement ring now sits in a small box on what used to be our kitchen counter.